Hi, this is Team TrekDev. We are doing the final presentation of our project Locality. I'm Zhao Xi. We have Amy, Neil, Peter, and Akshay on the team. Okay, for the project proposition, so our goal is to build a application that would provide relevant characters, recommendations, and a platform for users to create content and for users who wish to live in their best locations and are unhappy with the lack of a local review destination. To some extent, we have fulfilled this value proposition, but also we feel we can do have more about this. Can you go to the next slide? We have achieved some objectives, like for example, our project would allow users to search for schools and hospitals in a certain area. And our project will provide information about like homicide and air qualities. And like users can also search for population densities in our application. So all of this information would help users to decide like which are the best locations for there to live. And also we have other functions like users can insert any information they want, and like we can edit this, like delete this inserted information. So if in the future we want to like build a review-based application, we can use these functions. And the next, we have Neil to do some demo of our application.
All right, so I'm Neil, and I'm going to go ahead and demo our web application. So this is exposing some of our database features using select statements and displaying them in a web page with JSPs. So this is the top 10 highest population density locations. And if you wanted to search schools by zip code, you put in a zip code, put something local to me so that we get some results. And you'll see query our database, and it comes back with a list of the information and stuff that we have in there. Here's searching for hospitals by rating. We should be able to put in a rating here and get some results back. There we go. So these are all the number 2 rated hospitals that match. And this is obviously a pretty long list of hospitals. So we do have a few other things exposed, but this is just a quick demo of a couple of the features that we've implemented in our web app. We also have a bunch of business insights that we did through select statements that could be exposed through this web API also. And that would be something that we need to do in the future to make this a more fleshed out application. So I will bring it back into the slides and we continue.
Hi, this is Akshay. So I'm going to talk about the project deliverables that we had, different milestones that we covered during the entire process. Our first step was to create a relational model. So based on the data sets that we got, we tried to identify those data sets into different tables, and then normalize them to form a relational model. Initially, the relational model that we have wasn't very complicated, but later on we tried to refine it to reflect much better the data that we had. The next deliverable that we had was based on the data sets, we tried to find out some business insights. So these were some logical inferences that we made based on the data, like getting rating, finding the highest number of something and such. This was a pretty interesting deliverable because we got from raw data, we were able to extract meaningful information out of it. The next deliverable for creating a web application was a little complicated for us because integrating this deliverable from everyone was pretty challenging. So we created a web application in Java having different layers for data access, having different data access layers, having JSPs for front end, and using Tomcat as a server. Our final deliverable was creating a data warehousing workflow. The most challenging part in this section, I think, was coming up with a hypothesis. Creating the workflow was pretty simple, but I think it will be really helpful for us in the future to understand how such workflows take place. And I think overall, the project was a really good learning experience for every one of us. I think that's it from my side. Peter will then talk about how our UML progressed throughout the project.
Thanks, Akshay. Hi, folks. So let's move on to the next slide, and we'll take a look at our originally planned UML design. And you can see there that there are, we initially took five data sets: hospitals, schools, incidents, population density, annual air quality. And our intent was simply just to link them to locations, to a location or zip codes table that basically comprise the locations, which is very logical. Moving on to the next slide. The next slide represents the I guess the UML design that we finalized on, where we normalized incidents into agencies, incidents, victims, and perpetrators aggregations, and generalized hospitals into a base table, hospital and inherited subtables, children's, acute care, psychiatric, and critical care specializations, and then also I guess aggregated zip codes into zips, city, states, counties, and latitude and longitude pairs. So those are the major changes in the UML diagram through PM4. We actually took the normal. It's not shown in our slide, but we actually took the database design and further normalized it, much more adhering more closely to the principles discussed in normalization lectures from class. And we replaced the homicide data originally retrieved from Kaggle with more current and authoritative homicide data from murderdata.org, on which the original Kaggle data was actually based. And then sort of made the zip codes more rational by breaking that up into states that were related to counties, or actually zip codes that were related to cities, and cities related to counties, and counties related to states. And then did a better job also of normalizing the instance, which we replaced with, I guess, homicide reports. We just didn't have enough time to sort of, make all the application changes that would have been necessary to reflect those changes. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Amy, who will begin with telling us what went well.
Thanks, Peter. Okay. So what went well? I think it's the next. Okay, thank you. Well, each of us are from different cities and time zones around the US, and we were glad that we were able to coordinate meeting times and message and file sharing to work on this project. And each person contributed and did his or her part on the project, and we were able to get each deliverable successfully done. And we did have a time management issue for one of the deliverables because we did have to modify our UML diagram as told by Peter. And in order to get the minimum of 10 dataset tables, we also had to complete the create, drop, and insert portion of the project through the SQL workbench. So we had to do two separate things for that submission. Okay, next slide. What we might do differently. So there are a few things that we would have done differently, such as do a better job at normalizing the zip codes data into states, counties, cities. And we had some issues with that in the beginning. and also to provide better filters for users based on city and state. And another different thing that we would have done is to have a range function for the quality index and the air quality index and density data. Another thing is it would be helpful if we did start earlier in the week and divided the tasks more effectively before meeting again before the deadline. It would have helped us a lot. Okay, next slide. So what we plan to do next. So the next step for us is possibly to add more data sets to the model, such as solar panel consumption of a city and traffic accidents by a city. And we could do another ETL transformation. And I feel like those data sets would be useful for the user in finding a place to live. And another thing that we can add is to create a users table in the UML so that users can save and track their top choices for their convenience if they want to come back to their list. And it would also be cool to add a visual map of the US so that we can have an interactive user interface, and it would be cool for the user to see the map and pan over it and to view the stats on that city. Okay, thanks everyone, and that concludes the TrekDevs project.